The alien ship moved slowly through space toward the human vessel. Ambassador Zixstar stood on the bridge of his ship and watched the strange human craft through the viewing screen. He had spent many months studying human culture and their military ways. The humans were new to the galaxy, and the Velinari wanted to understand them better. Zixstar looked at his notes again. Human ships had captains who gave orders to everyone else. Under the captain were other officers with different ranks. The humans used stripes and bars on their uniforms to show who was in charge. It seemed simple enough to understand. The human ship was called the Intrepid. Captain Alan Rodriguez commanded it according to the information they had received. His second in command was Lieutenant Commander Patricia Williams. She helped run the ship when the captain was busy with other things. The alien ambassador felt ready for the meeting. When the two ships connected, Zixstar and his team walked through the metal hallway into the human ship. The humans had prepared a large room for the meeting. Captain Rodriguez stood at the front, wearing a uniform with gold stripes that showed his high rank. Lieutenant Commander Williams stood beside him with silver bars on her uniform. The captain stepped forward and spoke in a clear voice. "Welcome aboard the Intrepid. I am Captain Alan Rodriguez, and this is my executive officer, Lieutenant Commander Patricia Williams. We are happy to meet with the Velinari delegation." Zixstar bowed the way his people did when meeting someone important. "Thank you, Captain Rodriguez. I am Ambassador Zixstar of the Velinari Coalition. We are honored to be here." The meeting began, with both sides sharing information about their peoples. The humans seemed organized, and their chain of command appeared clear. But as the hours passed, Zixstar noticed something strange happening around him. During a break in the talks, Captain Rodriguez turned to speak with his crew. A human with no visible rank marks on his uniform approached the captain. The man was older than most of the others and had gray hair. Everyone called him Chief. "Chief, what do you think about their proposal for joint patrols?" the captain asked. The man called Chief looked thoughtful for a moment. "Sir, I think we need to be careful about their weapon systems. My people have some concerns about compatibility." Captain Rodriguez nodded seriously. "I trust your judgment, Chief. Make sure your team reviews everything twice." Zixstar watched this exchange with confusion. The man called Chief had no rank insignia that the ambassador could see. Yet the captain treated his opinion as very important. In Velinari society, only those with proper rank markers could advise. Senior leaders. The confusion grew when another human entered the room. This one wore a uniform like the others, but had only a simple bar on his collar. The humans called him Doc. When Doc walked into the room, everyone became quieter. Even the captain seemed to pay special attention to him. "Doc, how are the crew holding up with the extended shifts?" Lieutenant Commander Williams asked. Doc looked around the room with careful eyes. "Most of them are doing fine, but I want everyone to get proper rest before we start the joint operations. No one works more than 12 hours without a break." The captain nodded immediately. "Of course, Doc. Whatever you think is best." Zixstar felt more confused. This human called Doc seemed to have authority that went beyond his simple rank. When he spoke, everyone listened. When he made decisions, everyone accepted them without question. The alien observer, Captain Deckmer, leaned close to Zixstar. "Their hierarchy system makes no sense. How can someone with such low rank give orders to senior officers?" Zixstar shook his head. "I do not understand it either. We must study them more carefully." As the day continued, more strange things happened. When a technical problem arose with the ship's systems, Captain Rodriguez did not consult his technical officers first. Instead, he looked for Chief. When questions came up about crew safety, everyone turned to Doc. These humans seemed to have power that their rank did not explain. During the evening meal, Zixstar sat with some of the human crew members. He hoped to learn more about their system. A young human named Sergeant Jack Murphy sat across from him. "Sergeant Murphy, can you explain something to me?" Zixstar asked. "Why does your captain listen to the one called Chief when he appears to have no rank?" Murphy smiled. "Chief has been in the service for 20 years. He knows more about running a ship than anyone else here. When Chief talks, we all listen because he has earned our respect." "But what about the one called Doc?" Zixstar pressed. "He seems to have great authority as well." Murphy's expression became more serious. "Doc keeps us alive. When he says something about our health or safety, we follow his orders. It does not matter what rank anyone has. Doc's word is final when it comes to keeping the crew safe." Zixstar tried to understand. "So humans follow orders based on respect and knowledge, not just rank?" "Sometimes," Murphy replied. "Official ranks matter for most things. But certain people have earned special authority through their skills and experience. Chief knows ships and Doc knows medicine. We trust them to make the right decisions in their areas." The ambassador spent the rest of the evening watching the human crew. He saw how they interacted with each other and began to notice patterns. Junior officers followed orders from their superiors as expected. But when Chief spoke about technical matters, even senior officers listened carefully. When Doc made decisions about crew health, no one questioned him. Later that night, Zixstar met with his own team to discuss what they had learned. The other Velinari were equally confused by what they had seen. "Their system appears chaotic," said Captain Neckmer. "How can they maintain order when authority is so unclear?" "Perhaps their system is not as chaotic as it appears," Zixstar replied thoughtfully. "Maybe they have found a way to use both official authority and earned respect to run their ships." The next morning brought new challenges. The two groups were supposed to work together on a joint training exercise. But when the human crew prepared for the exercise, Zixstar noticed something that made him even more confused. Lieutenant Commander Williams was giving orders to the crew about the exercise. But when Doc approached her and said something quietly, she immediately changed her orders. She did not argue or question him. She simply accepted his advice and gave new instructions to everyone. Zixstar realized that understanding human hierarchy would be much more difficult than he had expected. These humans seemed to have created a system where official rank worked alongside something else, something based on trust, respect, and expertise that the aliens did not yet understand. As the day progressed, the ambassador began to see that the human called Doc held a special place in their society. People feared disappointing him in a way that seemed different from their fear of disappointing their captain. It was not fear of punishment, but something deeper, something that suggested Doc had power over life and death itself. The alien delegation would need much more time to understand why humans treated Doc with such special respect. But Zixstar was beginning to suspect that the answer would teach them something important about human nature and why these strange beings might be more dangerous than they appeared. 3 weeks had passed since the first meeting between humans and Velinari. The two groups now worked together on a joint space station where they could learn more about each other. Captain Deckmer had been assigned as the military observer to study human behavior and report back to the Velinari command. Every day brought new confusion about human hierarchy. The aliens had expected to understand the human system quickly, but found themselves more puzzled than ever. Official ranks seemed to matter sometimes, but not always. The humans appeared to follow rules that made no sense to alien minds. On a Tuesday morning, Vecmer watched the human crew conduct a training exercise. Commander Lisa Hayes led the tactical team through combat drills. She wore the uniform of a senior officer with clear rank markings. Her orders were followed without question as the team moved through the exercise. But then something unexpected happened. During a practice weapon handling drill, Commander Hayes reached for a piece of equipment too quickly. Her hand caught on a sharp edge and began to bleed. The cut was not deep, but it was bleeding steadily. Immediately, someone called for Doc. The human named Lieutenant Bobby Thompson arrived within minutes carrying a medical kit. He looked at the commander's injured hand and shook his head. "That needs proper treatment," Doc said calmly. "You are done with training for today." Commander Hayes started to protest. "Doc, it is just a small cut. I can continue the exercise." Doc looked at her with steady eyes. "Commander, you are bleeding and you need stitches. The exercise can wait. Medical bay. Now." To Vecmer's amazement, Commander Hayes immediately stopped arguing. She followed Doc to the medical bay without another word. The training exercise continued under the leadership of a junior officer. While the commander received treatment, Vecmer approached Sergeant Jack Murphy, who was cleaning up the training area. "Sergeant, can you help me understand what just happened?" Murphy looked up from his work. "What do you mean, sir?" "Your commander outranks the one called Doc by several levels. Yet she obeyed his orders without question. How is this possible?" Murphy leaned on his cleaning tool and thought for a moment. "Doc outranks everyone when it comes to keeping us breathing, sir. Even the captain knows better than to argue with him about medical matters." "But she could have ordered him to let her continue the exercise," Vecmer said. Murphy shook his head. "No, sir, she could not. When Doc says someone is not fit for duty, that decision stands. It does not matter what rank you have. If Doc says you are hurt, you get treatment. If Doc says you cannot work, you rest. That is how it works." Vecmer felt more confused than ever. So this human has authority over officers much senior to him? In medical matters, yes, sir. Doc has the final say about anything that affects crew health and safety. We trust him to make the right decisions because he has the training and experience to keep us alive. The alien observer spent the rest of the day watching Doc work. The human moved through the station with quiet confidence. People greeted him with respect, but also with something else. There was a careful way they spoke to him, as if they were afraid to displease him. During lunch, Vecmer sat near a table of human crew members. He listened to their conversation, hoping to learn more about their strange system. "Did you hear that Doc put Commander Hayes on light duty for 3 days?" One human said. "Good thing, too," replied another. "She has been pushing herself too hard lately. Someone needed to make her slow down." "I would not want to be the one to tell her that," said a third human. "But Doc can get away with it. Nobody argues with Doc about medical stuff." Vecmer leaned forward. "Excuse me, but why do you fear to disagree with Doc? Is he known to be violent?" The humans looked at each other and laughed. "Doc violent? No, sir. He is the gentlest person on the station. But he has power over something we all care about. What power is that?" Vecmer asked. "He decides who lives and who dies," one human said simply. "When we get hurt or sick, Doc is the one who fixes us. When we are scared or stressed, Doc is the one who helps us feel better. When we need to know if we are healthy enough to do our jobs, Doc makes that call." Another human nodded. "Doc has never hurt anyone, but he could destroy any of us just by saying we are not fit for duty, or by refusing to treat us when we get hurt. That is why we respect him so much." Vecmer began to understand. In Velinary society, power came from size and strength. The largest and strongest individuals naturally became leaders. But humans seemed to grant power based on the ability to help others survive. Later that day, a small crisis occurred that helped Vecmer understand even more. 2 crew members got into an argument about work assignments. The disagreement became heated and other crew members began to take sides. The situation threatened to disrupt the entire shift. Captain Rodriguez was in meetings with other officers and could not intervene immediately. The junior officers present seemed unsure how to handle the situation. But then Doc appeared in the corridor where the argument was taking place. Doc did not shout or threaten anyone. He simply walked up to the two arguing humans and said, "That is enough. Both of you come with me." The argument stopped immediately. Both humans followed Doc to a quiet area where he spoke with them privately. Within 10 minutes, they returned to work with no more fighting. The crisis was over. Vecmer approached one of the human crew members who had watched the whole thing. "How did Doc stop the argument so easily?" The human smiled. "Doc has a way of making people feel calm. When he talks to you, you listen. When he tells you to do something, you do it. Not because you are afraid of him, but because you trust him." "But why do you trust him so much?" Vecmer pressed. "Because he has earned it," the human replied. "Doc has saved lives. He has helped people through hard times. He has made decisions that kept us safe. When someone proves they care about your welfare, you listen to their advice." That evening, Ekmar wrote a report to send back to Velinari Command. He tried to explain what he had learned about human hierarchy, but found it difficult to put into words. "The humans have created a dual system of authority," he wrote. "Official ranks determine most decisions and maintain order, but they also recognize expertise and trust as sources of power. Individuals who demonstrate special skills or who earn the respect of their peers can influence decisions beyond their official rank." He paused in his writing and thought about Doc. The human called Doc represents the most puzzling aspect of their system. He holds authority over life and death decisions that transcends normal rank structure. Even senior officers defer to his judgment in medical matters. The crew treats him with a mixture of respect and fear that suggests he wields enormous power over their daily lives. Vecmer finished his report, but felt he had not captured the full truth of what he had observed. There was something about the way humans treated Doc that went beyond simple respect for medical expertise. They seemed to view him as essential to their survival in a way that their official leaders were not. Over the following days, Vecmer continued to study the human crew. He watched how they interacted with their captain, their officers, and with each other. But he paid special attention to how they behaved around Doc. What he saw convinced him that Doc held a unique position in human society. The man was not just a medical officer. He was a keeper of life and death, a protector of the crew's physical and mental health, and a source of calm in times of crisis. The aliens had thought they understood human hierarchy by studying rank insignia and command structures. But they were learning that true power among humans came from earning trust and demonstrating the ability to keep others alive and healthy. Doc might wear the uniform of a junior officer, but in the eyes of his crew, he was one of the most powerful humans aboard the station. And that power made him someone that even the aliens were beginning to view with caution and respect. The breakthrough moment came on a Thursday morning when disaster struck the joint station. A maintenance error in the alien section caused a massive hull breach that sucked 3 Velinari crew members into the vacuum of space. The station's emergency systems activated immediately, sealing the breach and pulling the injured aliens back inside. But the 3 Velinari were badly hurt. The vacuum of space had damaged their breathing organs and caused severe injuries that their own medical team struggled to understand. In Velinari society, medical treatment followed strict protocols based on the rank and biological caste of the injured individuals. The senior Velinari healer, a large individual named Crickstow, immediately began establishing proper treatment. Hierarchy. First, he needed to determine the biological caste of each injured crew member. Then he would need to consult with the medical council to decide on appropriate treatments. The process would take hours while the injured aliens lay suffering. Ambassador. Zixstar watched from the observation area as his people followed their traditional medical procedures. The 3 injured crew members were clearly in pain, but Velinari medical protocol demanded careful consideration before treatment could begin. Then something unexpected happened. The human called Doc appeared in the doorway of the alien medical bay. He carried his medical kit and wore the calm expression that humans had learned to respect. Without asking permission or waiting for invitation, he walked directly to the injured aliens. What are their injuries? Doc asked the Velinari medical team. Crickstal looked up in surprise. Human, this is not your concern. These are Velinari crew members, and they will be treated according to our procedures. Doc ignored the alien healer and knelt beside the first injured crew member. He began examining the wounds with gentle hands while the alien medical team watched in confusion. The injured Velinari was barely conscious, but did not resist the human's touch. This one has lung damage from vacuum exposure, Doc said to himself. The other 2 have similar injuries, plus some broken bones. He looked up at the alien medical team. Do you have equipment to help them breathe? Crickstal drew himself up to his full height, which was much larger than the human. You have no authority here. Remove yourself immediately so we can follow proper medical procedures. Doc continued working on the injured alien and did not look up. Your procedures are going to let them die while you argue about who gets treated. First, the tension in the room grew thick. The alien medical team was clearly upset by the humans' interference. But before anyone could act, Sergeant Jack Murphy appeared in the doorway with 2 other human crew members. Doc is working, Murphy said simply. The 3 humans positioned themselves between the aliens and Doc in a way that made it clear they would not allow interference. Ambassador. Zixstar watched in amazement as this scene unfolded. The human called Doc had no authority in the alien medical bay. He was not even the senior medical officer on the station. Yet 3 human crew members were prepared to physically defend his right to treat injured aliens. More humans began to arrive. Lieutenant Commander Patricia Williams entered the medical bay and took a position near the door. She said nothing, but her presence made it clear that the human command structure supported Doc's actions. Even Captain Rodriguez appeared and stood quietly in the corner. He did not give orders or interfere with the alien medical procedures, but he also did not order Doc to stop working. His silence spoke volumes about where his loyalties lay. Doc worked with steady hands on the first injured alien. He used human medical equipment to help the creature breathe more easily. Then he moved to the second injured crew member and began treating broken bones with quick efficiency. Crickstal tried again to assert his authority. This is highly irregular. You cannot treat our people without following proper protocols. Doc finally looked up from his work. His voice was calm but firm. Your protocols are killing them. I can save them. Choose. The alien healer looked around the room at all the humans who had gathered. Their body language made it clear they would support Doc's decision regardless of what the aliens preferred. The injured crew members were clearly improving under Doc's care. Crickstal made a decision. That surprised everyone. Continue your treatment, but I will observe and assist as needed. Doc nodded and returned to his work. I need you to monitor their vital signs while I work on the third patient. Can you do that with your equipment? The alien healer began working alongside the human, following Doc's instructions despite the breach of all normal protocols. Other Velinari medical personnel joined in, creating an unusual partnership between the 2 species. For the next 4 hours, Doc worked to save the 3 injured aliens. He used human medical techniques combined with alien physiology knowledge provided by the Velinari healers. The humans in the room remained silent and alert, ready to support Doc if any problems arose. Ambassador Zixtar found himself studying the human crew members more than watching the medical procedures. Their behavior revealed something important about human nature. When Doc was working to save lives, he became untouchable. No one questioned his authority or interfered with his decisions. The injured aliens gradually stabilized under Doc's care. Their breathing improved and their pain decreased. The Villanari medical team admitted privately that their own procedures would not have been as effective. The humans' quick action had saved lives that might otherwise have been lost. Crisis was over, and the injured crew members were resting comfortably. Doc quietly packed his medical equipment. He spoke briefly with the alien healers about ongoing care, and then prepared to leave. Crixtel approached him before he could go. "I must ask you something. Why did you interfere with our medical procedures? You had no authority to treat our people." Doc looked at the large alien with tired eyes. "Because they were dying, and I could help them. That is what medics do." "But you risked creating a diplomatic incident," Crixtel pressed. "Your actions could have damaged relations between our species." Doc shrugged. "Maybe, but they are alive now. That matters more than politics." The alien healer studied the humans' face for a long moment. "You truly believe that preserving life is more important than following proper procedures?" "Always," Doc replied simply. After Doc left, Ambassador Zixtar approached Crixtel. "What did you learn from working with the human?" The alien healer was quiet for a moment. "He has skills that our medical training does not include. But more than that, he has a dedication to preserving life that transcends normal authority structures. When he was working on our injured crew members, nothing else mattered to him?" "And the other humans?" Zixtar asked. "Why did they support him so completely?" Crixtel looked toward the door where Doc had exited. "Because they understand something we are only beginning to learn. That human is not just a medical officer. He is a guardian of life itself. When he works to save someone, he represents the most important values of his species." The ambassador spent the rest of the day thinking about what he had witnessed. The humans had created a system where certain individuals held authority that went beyond normal rank structures. But Doc's authority was different from what they had seen before. Chief held power through experience and technical knowledge. But Doc held power through his ability to preserve life. When he worked to save someone, he became the most important person in the room, regardless of his official rank. The 3 injured Valinari crew members made full recoveries over the following days. Their own medical team admitted this would not have been possible using their traditional procedures. Doc's intervention had saved lives that their own protocols would have failed to preserve. Word of the incident spread throughout the station. The alien crew members began to view Doc with new respect and understanding. They realized that his authority among humans was not arbitrary, but based on his proven ability to preserve life in crisis situations. Ambassador Zixtar wrote another report to Velinari Command that evening. "The human called Doc has demonstrated why his species treats him with such reverence. He possesses both the skills and the dedication necessary to preserve life in situations where normal procedures would fail. His authority comes not from rank, but from his proven ability to save lives when it matters most." The ambassador paused in his writing and considered what he had learned. The humans have created a system that recognizes different types of power. Official authority maintains order and discipline. But when life itself is at stake, they defer to those who have proven their ability to preserve it. This may explain why human crews are so effective in crisis situations. He finished his report, but knew he still had much to learn about human hierarchy. The incident had shown him that Doc's power was real and respected by his own people. But it had also demonstrated that this power extended beyond species boundaries when life was at stake. The aliens were beginning to understand that Doc was not just scary because of his authority over his own people. He was scary because he represented something fundamental about human nature: the willingness to preserve life at any cost, and the ability to make life or death decisions with calm efficiency. In a galaxy where most species valued hierarchy and protocol above individual lives, humans had created something different. They had made the preservation of life itself the highest A. The weeks following the medical crisis brought new understanding between the human and alien crews. The Velinari had seen Doc in action and now recognized why his own people treated him with such respect. But they still struggled to understand the full scope of human hierarchy and how it really worked. Ambassador Zixstar decided to spend more time studying the human crew during their normal daily activities. He wanted to understand how their informal power structures operated when there was no crisis to reveal them clearly. He began by observing Chief more carefully. Senior Chief Petty Officer Kevin Walsh had been in the military for over 20 years. His official rank was not the highest on the station, but everyone treated him as a source of wisdom and experience. During a routine maintenance check, Zixstar watched Chief direct a team of technicians working on the station's power systems. The team included several humans who outranked Chief officially, but they followed his instructions without question. "Chief, should we replace this power coupling now or wait until the next scheduled maintenance?" asked Lieutenant Gary Stone. Chief examined the equipment carefully. "Better to replace it now. This model tends to fail without warning, and we cannot afford a power outage during the joint operations." Lieutenant Stone nodded and ordered the replacement part. No one questioned Chief's judgment, even though the lieutenant could have made the decision himself. The team clearly trusted Chief's experience more than official procedures. Zixstar approached Lieutenant Stone after the work was completed. "Why do you defer to Chief's judgment when you outrank him?" The young officer seemed surprised by the question. "Because Chief knows more about maintaining spacecraft than anyone else on the station. He has been doing this job since before I was born. When Chief makes a recommendation about technical matters, we follow it. But what if his recommendation contradicts official procedures?" Zixstar asked. "Then we probably follow Chief's advice." "Anyway," Stone replied honestly, "official procedures are written by people who might not understand the real problems we face. Chief has seen it all and knows what actually works." This helped Zixstar understand that humans recognized expertise as a form of authority separate from official rank. Chief held power through knowledge and experience that could not be replaced by formal training or rank advancement. But Doc remained more mysterious. His authority seemed to extend beyond his medical expertise into areas that had nothing to do with health or safety. Zixstar decided to observe him more closely to understand this phenomenon. The opportunity came during a joint training exercise between human and alien crews. The exercise was designed to test their ability to work together under stressful conditions. Commander Lisa Hayes was leading the human team through a series of challenging scenarios. The exercise had been running for several hours, and the crew was beginning to show signs of fatigue. Commander Hayes was pushing them hard to complete all the objectives within the time limit. The aliens watched as the humans struggled to maintain their performance levels. Doc appeared at the edge of the training area. He did not interrupt the exercise or speak to Commander Hayes directly. He simply stood there and watched the crew work. But his presence seemed to change the atmosphere in the room. Commander Hayes noticed Doc after a few minutes. She continued running the exercise, but Zixstar could see her glancing toward Doc repeatedly. The commander seemed to be waiting for something. Finally, Doc walked onto the training area. He did not raise his voice or make any dramatic gestures. He simply said, "That is enough for today." The exercise stopped immediately. Commander Hayes looked at Doc with a mixture of frustration and relief. "Doc, we still have 2 more scenarios to complete." Doc looked at the exhausted crew members around him. Your people are tired. Tired crews make mistakes. Mistakes get people hurt. The scenarios can wait until tomorrow. Commander Hayes clearly wanted to argue, but she also clearly knew better. You are right. Everyone take a break. We will continue tomorrow morning. The crew members began to disperse, while Zixtar stood in amazement. He had just watched a lieutenant override the decisions of a commander without any discussion or debate. More importantly, the commander had accepted this override without challenging it. Later that day, Zixtar found Commander Hayes in the station's recreation area. She was having coffee with some of the other human officers and seemed relaxed despite the interrupted exercise. Commander, may I ask you something about what happened during the training exercise? Zixtar said. Hayes looked up from her coffee. Of course. What did you want to know? Why did you stop the exercise when Doc suggested it? You outrank him by several levels, and you had the authority to continue. Hayes thought for a moment before answering. Because Doc was right. My people were getting tired, and I was pushing them too hard. When Doc tells me something about crew welfare, I listen. But you could have ordered him to leave the training area. Zixtar pressed. Hayes laughed. I could have tried. But Doc does not take orders when he thinks someone's health or safety is at risk. He would have stayed there until I ended the exercise or until someone got hurt, proving he was right. So his authority comes from his willingness to disobey orders? Zixtar asked. No, his authority comes from being right about these things. Hayes replied. Doc has never been wrong about crew welfare. When he says we need to rest, we need to rest. When he says someone is not fit for duty, they are not fit for duty. We have learned to trust his judgment. This conversation helped Zixtar understand something important about human nature. They valued being right more than following procedures. When someone consistently made good decisions, they earned the right to override official authority in their area of expertise. But Doc's authority still seemed to extend beyond medical matters. Zixtar had noticed that crew members often sought Doc's advice about personal problems that had nothing to do with their physical health. The next day, he observed Doc counseling a young crew member who was having trouble adjusting to life on the station. The conversation took place in the medical bay, but it was clearly about emotional rather than physical problems. I just do not feel like I belong here, the young human was saying. Everyone else seems to know what they are doing, and I feel lost. Most of the time, Doc listened patiently before responding. Everyone feels that way when they first join a crew. The important thing is to focus on learning and not worry about making mistakes. But what if I make a mistake that hurts someone? The crew member asked. Then you learn from it and do better next time, Doc replied. The only real mistake is not learning from your experiences. The conversation continued for another 20 minutes, with Doc offering advice and encouragement. When it ended, the young crew member seemed much more confident and relaxed. Zixtar approached Doc after the crew member left. You seem to counsel people about problems that are not medical in nature. Doc looked at the alien ambassador with calm eyes. Physical health and mental health are connected. If someone is worried or stressed, it affects their ability to do their job safely. Taking care of their emotional needs is part of keeping them healthy. But do your superiors approve of you spending time on these activities? Zixtar asked. They encourage it, Doc replied. A crew that trusts their medic is a crew that stays healthy. When people feel comfortable talking to me about their problems, I can help them before those problems become serious. This explanation helped Zixtar understand why Doc's authority extended so far beyond his official duties. He was not just responsible for treating injuries and illnesses. He was responsible for maintaining the overall well-being of the crew. That evening, Zixtar had dinner with Captain Rodriguez and asked him directly about Doc's role on the station. Captain, I am trying to understand the authority structure of your crew. The one called Doc seems to have power that goes beyond his official rank. Captain Rodriguez nodded. Doc has earned that authority through years of service and by proving that he always puts the crew's welfare first. When he makes a decision about someone's health or safety, I support it completely, even if it contradicts your orders? Zixstar asked. Especially then, Rodriguez replied. If Doc thinks my orders are putting someone at risk, then I probably need to reconsider those orders. He sees things from a different perspective than I do. What perspective is that? Zixstar asked. Rodriguez thought for a moment. Doc sees every crew member as a person whose life has value. When I make decisions, I have to consider the mission, the rules, and the bigger picture. When Doc makes decisions, he only considers what is best for the individual people under his care. This conversation finally helped Zixstar understand why Doc was so feared and respected. He represented the human belief that individual lives were more important than abstract concepts, like duty or mission success. In Velinari society, individuals were expected to sacrifice themselves for the greater good when necessary. But humans had created a system where someone's job was to protect individuals, even when that protection conflicted with other priorities. Doc was not just a medical officer. He was a guardian of human values who had the authority to override any decision that threatened the well-being of his crew. This made him one of the most powerful people on the station, because he could stop any activity that he deemed harmful. The final test of everything the aliens had learned came 6 weeks later during a routine mining operation on a distant asteroid. A joint team of humans and Velinari were extracting rare minerals from deep inside the rocky body when disaster struck without warning. The asteroid's internal structure was more unstable than the geological surveys had indicated. A massive section collapsed, trapping 12 crew members in a maze of fallen rock and twisted metal. The collapse blocked all normal exit routes and damaged the communication systems. On the surface, emergency teams scrambled to organize a rescue operation. Captain Rodriguez took command of the situation, while engineers worked to find a safe way to reach the trapped crew members. But the rescue would take many hours, and no one knew if the trapped people had enough air to survive that. Long inside the collapsed section, panic threatened to take control. The trapped crew included 6 humans and 6 Velinari, along with Lieutenant Bobby Thompson, who everyone called Doc. The emergency lighting cast strange shadows on the walls, while dust filled the air and made breathing difficult. Captain Rodriguez was among the trapped crew, but he had been knocked unconscious during the collapse. His head injury left him unable to command the rescue efforts from inside the trap. Commander Lisa Hayes was on the surface coordinating the external rescue, but could not communicate with the people inside. The formal command structure had broken down completely. The trapped crew members looked around at each other in the dim light and realized they were on their own. Without clear leadership, fear began to spread through the group. Then Doc stood up from where he had been checking Captain Rodriguez's injuries. He looked around at the frightened faces surrounding him and seemed to understand what needed to happen. Everyone gather around, Doc said in a calm voice. We need to take stock of our situation and make some decisions. The crew members moved closer to Doc, both human and alien. In the crisis, species differences seemed less important than the need for leadership and direction. Doc examined each person carefully, checking for injuries and assessing their condition. 2 humans had broken bones. 1 Velinari had a serious cut on his arm, and everyone was showing signs of stress and fear. First, medical priorities, Doc said as he worked. Jake, your arm is broken, but you can still move around. Crixnil, that cut needs pressure to stop the bleeding. Sarah, I need you to help me keep track of everyone's condition. The injured crew members accepted Doc's treatment without question. Even the Velinari, who normally required extensive medical protocols, allowed Doc to work on them with simple efficiency. After treating the injuries, Doc turned his attention to the larger situation. We have limited air, and we do not know how long rescue will take. We need to conserve energy and stay calm. Sergeant Jack Murphy, who had been trapped along with the others, looked around at the collapsed area. Doc, what do you think our chances are? Doc considered the question carefully. If we stay calm and work together, we will all make it out alive. But we need to be smart about how we use our resources. The alien crew members watched in fascination as the humans automatically accepted Doc's leadership. No one questioned his authority or suggested that someone with higher rank should take command. Even though Captain Rodriguez was present, everyone understood that Doc was now in charge. Here is what we are going to do, Doc continued. We will divide into teams. One team will work on clearing debris from the blocked passages. Another team will signal to the surface rescue teams. Everyone else will rest and conserve air. The crew members began organizing themselves according to Doc's instructions. Humans and aliens worked together without regard for their usual hierarchies. Doc's calm leadership had created a new command structure based on survival rather than rank. As the hours passed, the trapped crew faced new challenges. The air was getting thinner, and some people were beginning to panic. The physical work of moving debris was exhausting everyone, and progress was slow. During the worst moment, when it seemed like the rescue might fail, one of the Velinary crew members began to lose hope. We are going to die down here, he said. Loudly, the rescue teams will never reach us in time. The fear was infectious, and other crew members began to show signs of panic. In the confined space, terror could spread quickly and destroy any chance of survival. Doc moved to the center of the group and spoke in a voice that carried complete confidence. Nobody is going to die today. The rescue teams know where we are, and they will reach us. Our job is to stay alive until they get here. How can you be so sure? Asked one of the human crew members. Doc looked around at all the faces watching him. Because I have been in situations like this before. I have seen crews survive worse conditions than this. What matters is not giving up and not letting fear control our actions. The panic began to subside as Doc's calm confidence spread through the group. People returned to their assigned tasks with renewed determination. Sergeant Murphy, who was resting after a shift of moving debris, spoke quietly to one of the Velinary crew members. This is why we follow Doc's orders. He does not just treat our bodies. He takes care of our minds and our spirits too. The alien looked confused. I do not understand. Murphy explained patiently. Doc keeps us believing that we are worth saving. In a place like this, surrounded by danger and death, that belief is what keeps us human. Without it, we would become animals fighting for survival. The alien began to understand something important about human nature. Doc's authority was not just about medical knowledge or leadership skills. It was about his ability to preserve the essential humanity of his crew, even in the worst circumstances. As the rescue efforts continued, Doc made decisions that revealed the true scope of his power. When water ran low, he decided who got to drink first. When the air became dangerously thin, he decided who would rest and who would continue working. These were life and death decisions that normally only the highest ranking officers would make. But everyone accepted Doc's choices without question, because they trusted him to value their lives above all other considerations. The breakthrough came after 8 hours of being trapped. The surface rescue teams finally broke through the debris and reached the trapped crew. As fresh air flowed into the collapsed area, everyone cheered and prepared to evacuate. But Doc was not finished yet. He personally checked each crew member before allowing them to leave. He made sure their injuries were stable and that they could safely make the journey to the surface. Sarah, "You go first," Doc said to one of the human crew members. "Your breathing is still labored from the dust." "Jake, you are next. That broken arm needs proper treatment." Even in the moment of rescue, Doc maintained his authority over who lived and who died. He decided the order of evacuation based on medical need rather than rank or species. When the last crew member had been safely evacuated, Doc finally allowed himself to leave the collapsed area. On the surface, he immediately began coordinating with the medical teams to treat the injured survivors. Ambassador Zixtar had watched the entire rescue operation from the command center. He saw how the surface teams had worked desperately to reach the trapped crew. But he also heard the radio reports from inside the collapsed area that described Doc's leadership. That evening, Zixtar met with the survivors to learn what had happened during their time trapped underground. The stories he heard confirmed everything he had suspected about Doc's unique authority. "He saved us all," said Sergeant Murphy, "not just by treating our injuries, but by keeping us human when we could have become something else." One of the Velinari survivors added, "Your Doc showed us why humans are so effective in crisis situations. He has the ability to make life and death decisions while maintaining the values that define your species." Zixtar spent the rest of the evening writing his final report about human hierarchy and the role of Doc in their society. He now understood why this unassuming lieutenant was considered one of the most powerful and feared individuals in human space. "The human called Doc represents the ultimate authority in human society," he wrote. "He holds power over life and death that transcends all other considerations. When he speaks with the authority of someone whose only concern is preserving human life and human values. But his power is not arbitrary or cruel. It is based on his proven ability to make the right decisions in the worst circumstances. When humans face death and danger, they turn to Doc because he has demonstrated that he will always choose life over death, humanity over expedience, and individual welfare over abstract principles." Zixtar concluded his report with a warning to Velinari Command. "The humans have created a system where certain individuals hold authority that goes beyond normal rank structures. Doc is the most dangerous of these individuals because he represents the human willingness to preserve life at any cost. In warfare, this makes him a formidable opponent because he will never surrender as long as his people are still alive. In diplomacy, this makes him a valuable ally because he will always choose solutions that preserve life over solutions that preserve pride or power. We must understand that when humans say someone is just a Doc, they are not diminishing his importance. They are acknowledging that he holds the most important authority in their society, a power to decide who lives and